So before I even start talking about The Fall, I want to unlock, as the TikTokers say, a memory that you never knew you had. So upon finishing this game, it really took me down memory lane in regards to point and click adventures and just in general games that I played as a kid. So I spoke to a friend of mine, fellow reviewer Caleb Janssens, who will meet all your Netflix review needs. And I asked him if he played the same point-and-click adventures I did as a kid, like Book of Unwritten Tales, Monkey Island, and he told me that he hadn't played them, but then he reminded me, as we were talking about these childhood games, of something called Jumpstart, and it just blew my mind and unlocked a memory I completely forgot I had. And I went looking back at some Jumpstart clips from the past, and it's like crazy how many memories are in my head that I didn't even know about. I mean, if this intro doesn't make you nostalgic as hell, then you grew up wrong. Anyway, let's talk about The Fall. Welcome to Indecent. My name is Vincent and I'm here to take a look at some movies and games, both old and new, to help you find what could be your next favorite independent project. So if you have a heart for passion projects and low budget masterpieces, please consider subscribing to my channel on our quest to find the ultimate independent production. But without wasting any more time, let's dive right into my personal thoughts and feelings on The Fall. The Fall is a 2014 action-adventure side-scrolling platform game by Canadian independent developer Over the Moon. The story centers on Arid, an artificial intelligence installed in a technologically advanced combat spacesuit, as she navigates a decaying industrial facility in search of medical attention for the suit's injured pilot, with traditional adventure game elements requiring found items and unlocked skills to progress the story, along with 2D cover-based shooting. Now, to give you some context as to how we're going to do things, first we're going to do some spoiler-free talk, safe for the uninitiated and for someone who's never heard or seen this game before, and that's going to be indicated by this graphic. Then we're going to move into some spoiler conversations discussing some topics suitable for people who've actually played the game, and that will be indicated by this graphic. But without wasting any more time, let's dive right into my general thoughts on The Fall, and I can just say from the get-go that I really enjoyed this game because it brings something back that is genuinely missing in our current age of gaming, and it's the point and click adventure. Now, this game is not a point and click adventure. In fact, you move and control in a 2D platformer fashion with some interesting control schemes which we'll get to, but it has an absolutely point and click adventure feeling to it. Think Monkey Island, think Space Quest, something along those lines, but it trades out humor for a darker, deeper story, which for the most part succeeds very well. And even though it only took me about 2 to 3 hours to finish the game, it completely drew me in and left me wanting more. And I'm very excited to bring this game to you because the more time I've spent thinking about it, the more positively I reflect back on my experience with The Fall. So something that I really love about this game is the fact that they really throw you into the themes and ideas of this game from the start menu. I mean, the start menu almost gave me a fright when I saw it and made me feel like I clicked on something wrong because it's this glitchy text and it's got this ROM look. I don't know if I'm using that right. Anyway, and it really immerses you into, ooh, this is a really dark, like, AI broken something is here. It intrigues you and I love that. And when you eventually press play, you immediately start by having your character falling through the sky and crash landing in this strange place with one mission: save the life of your pilot, as the AI takes over the suit that the pilot is wearing in order to protect her pilot, which is what is ingrained into her coding. And I remember when I just started the story and understood the premise, I was immediately intrigued. And I can tell you right now, the story is absolutely the best part of this game. Now, another thing that I noticed immediately when starting the game is its graphics. And at first I was like, ooh, these graphics are pretty rough. But as I continued playing the game, it stopped bothering me, and in fact I quite liked it because it added to the feeling of the game. And I have to keep in mind that this game was for the most part made by one person, and for that they did a stellar job in 2014 to get a game that actually looks pretty good for having been made by one person. It's good, and it later on, the ruggedness of the graphics actually fits to the emptiness and the vast, eerie, creepy feeling that this game has. So the graphics, even though it started out being a negative point to me, actually became a positive. I just had to get used to what they were going for. This game also has very few characters. I mean, I can limit the amount of characters in this game to my one hand, but there's still a lot of dialogue in this game. It's actually quite dialogue heavy. And the thing that I loved about the dialogue is I never had the need to skip through any of it. I was immersed by the amazing acting in the game, which, I mean, brilliant. Like, the fact that they had such stellar voice acting in such an indie game is really one of the best parts of this game. I enjoyed the acting. I genuinely enjoyed the portrayals of the different characters 100%, genuinely without fault. There's not a part of the acting that I could fault or say I didn't enjoy, because I think the actors poured their hearts into the voice acting of this game, and I really, really appreciate that and appreciate the love that went into that. Not to speak about the script writing. The script writing of the dialogue is done very well, because at the end of the day, this whole game poses the question of how would artificial intelligence think? And I think the way that they portrayed that was perfectly done and was a brilliant take on that. And I don't want to spoil anything just yet, so I'll just leave it on that in regards to the dialogue and AI characters and how it's portrayed. But let's first get back to the gameplay. Now, if I had to point to a weakness of this game, it would 100% be the actual gameplay, and not what you need to do, but how you do it. It has a very unique control scheme, which I actually appreciate, and I want to give the developer credit for the fact that they genuinely had a control scheme that I haven't particularly experienced before. Now, it's nothing mind-blowing or anything, but it was something that I had no neural pathways or muscle memories for. So for the most part of the game, you are looking for objects and informations and ways to use those two things to progress your mission. You know, point and click stuff, you know, get this glass jar, fill it with that thing, pour it on that thing, that type of gameplay. But the interesting twist that they bring to it is there's also 2D cover-based shooting, and I completely didn't expect it. Now, I understood that I had a gun, which in the beginning of the game isn't operational, and it's not a big spoiler because they hinted it pretty early on that you're meant to find a functioning gun. Once you get one and there's combat, which is sparse but still enough, I think it's a good balance. There's proper 2D cover-based shooting with unique elements on how it works and how you utilize it, and I think for the most part the cover-based shooting was a win. I'm glad they included it. I know a lot of people were bothered by the inclusion of this. I personally wasn't, because I felt it was a fresh thing to insert into an otherwise adventure find stuff game. Now, speaking on the finding stuff and using tools, I would say for the most part that it's pretty intuitive, except for a few times where how you solve the certain puzzles was completely illogical and had some real point and click adventure logic to it, where it's just trial and error and then eventually like, oh, okay, that's how you do it. I would never have guessed that. And truth be told, there were a few times where I had to look up answers to riddles and stuff, and I could only maybe point to 2 times where I genuinely wouldn't have found it even if I was patient. Like, the only reason I did get some help to find answers to certain puzzles was because I wanted to get to the point where I could share this game review with you, and I didn't want to spend a year on this game. But for the most part, I think the puzzles are fair, and if you take your time, if you cover your bases, you will solve these puzzles. It genuinely is, for the most part, very logical. Now, the final thing I'd like to discuss before we go over into spoiler territory is one of my favorite aspects of the game on a storytelling and gameplay aspect. And it is a thing called operating parameters. Now, keep in mind, in this game, you are an AI suit being piloted by a person inside. This person is wearing the suit. But because this person is in need of medical attention and isn't conscious to operate the suit, you as AI have to control yourself, you as a suit. And there are a bunch of operating parameters that you have. For instance, invisibility, or the use of your gun, or the ability to link with things wirelessly. That is meant for the use of the pilot. And as an AI, you have certain restrictions. But to unlock these different abilities that you have to prove that you need them in order to save this pilot's life, because that's the only way the AI coding and rules will allow you to use it. So for instance, let's say you had the ability to absorb bullets. To unlock that ability, you would need to be in opposing gunfire where as the bullets are about to hit you, your AI evaluates that you need this bullet absorption ability, and then it unlocks and you're able to use it. And it's a really cool morality and AI questioning thing of, okay, cool. So to keep the rules, which is keep the pilots alive, certain rules have to be broken by putting your pilot's life in danger. And it's an awesome philosophical debate and thing to look at. And I really, really admire the questions that they pose in this game by having this sort of system in place. And I think that's very cool and just a testament to the creativity that's been put into the gameplay and storytelling of this game. Before we continue into spoiler talk, I'd just like to ask you to subscribe if you love hidden gems like these hidden games, hidden movies, because I have a passion for them and I have a passion for sharing them with you. So if you have a passion for them too, please support me and I'll greatly appreciate it. Now into spoiler talk. Now let's talk about the characters in this game, and there's primarily two. I understand that you do have discussions here and there with minor characters, but there's two characters, the caretaker and the monitor guy. Did he have a name? I can't remember. Anyway, and I loved both of them, especially Mr. Monitor. I'll call him that. I like that. Now I loved his voice acting and character as a whole because he is essentially a very advanced AI, or maybe even an AI that's cracked through his rules to be an actual personality, or maybe that's just an act to be a better AI. I mean, that's what this game sets up, is AI can break its code to be better at what it believes is its most important mission. So maybe that's what happened with his character, or he genuinely broke through. And that's something I feel you might have to decide for yourself. Although I think there's a whole lot of hinting towards him having actually broken through and becoming self-aware. But what is self-awareness anyway, and how do you prove it? So that's another existential question for you. So I loved his character. I also loved the character of the caretaker and how he's kind of observing you, kind of trying to hunt you down, but also curious to see what you want to do. And that whole story arc is perfect as well. And these trio of characters, Arid, Mr. Monitor, and the caretaker, just complement each other very well. I love Arid's character and this constant, almost obsession with keeping her pilot alive, because it feels almost emotional, even though it's just rules, but she's doing her utmost best to do what it takes to keep Joseph's alive, the pilot. But then the ending, as she removes her armor and realizes she is an empty shell, and this pilot she believes to be contained within her shell isn't even there, never mind dead. And that's where they leave us. And it really makes me very excited to play the sequel. In fact, it's downloading right now because I want to bring you the next review of this sequel, The Fall 2 Unbound, and I'm very excited for that. So I think they leave us on this perfect cliffhanger, making us ask these questions and being excited to see what is next. And I know I, for one, am very excited to see what more this universe has to offer. And even though I understand we barely spoke any spoilers, I just think this is almost like a prequel to the proper game, which is The Fall 2. And I think we can go into way more in-depth discussions about themes and endings and twists when we get there, because the story has only just begun. And I really hope that I see you in the next part of the story as we delve deeper into the world of The Fall. But for now, that's it from me, Vincent from Indecent, and I'm super excited to see you in my future videos. If you like this video, please give it a like and comment your thoughts on this game. Recommend me games that I might not think of, because we're on this journey together to find these hidden gems. And I can't wait to see what you have discovered.